Excellent. How's my audio? Am I coming in loud and clear?
I can hear you great.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. We had some tech issues this morning, folks, and that happens with every event. So shout out to Nikki for managing this event all day. I think she's doing a great job. I'm actually glad that if someone had tech issues, it was me because I can roll with it. I do events too, so I know how this game is played. But we're going to jump back into my presentation, the state of social media. So let me get the deck loaded up here for you. And I actually do have more newer data than than what I presented this morning, believe it or not. Just a couple updated stats based on some searches I did. And here we go. All right, so I'm going to have the chat open up on my phone here. So if you, again, have any issues, technical or otherwise, have any questions, load them into the comments in the Facebook group. And if you are tweeting, make sure to hashtag virtual South by Southwest, SXSW. And you can find me at Jason Keath on all of the social networks, Keath. I am on TikTok, but I have not done anything on TikTok yet. Bear with me there. I will have some content up soon, fingers crossed. Tweet me tweeting me, hitting me up on Twitter, DMs. You can tag me, take any pictures of the slides you'd like today, and I will follow up there as well. It's my favorite social network, Twitter, so it's the best place to extend the conversation with me personally. Okay, so I am going to kick off a brief review of the social media in the age of coronavirus stats that I gave this morning. Just to jump through these. 20 million mentions a day. This was about a week ago from Sprinkler. I imagine this number is probably double now, and is, again, 7 days ago, it was about 5 times some of the most mentioned keywords on social at the time. For instance, whoever the president is usually one of the most mentioned names, keywords on social media. So it was about 5 times more than Trump being mentioned currently. I don't think that's political at all. It's just to give you a volume scale of how much attention coronavirus is taking on social media. I showed this chart this morning. Facebook was the #1 search term on Google last year, most searched term for the whole year of 2019. As of a few days ago, coronavirus was getting about 5 times as much search volume as Facebook, as the most visited website in the world. Today, I just reset these stats on Google search trends, and now it is up to 7 times more. If you talk to Google, they've never seen anything like this ever in their history for search volume. So much so that it's actually breaking their search trends tool occasionally. And they've extended it to a dotted line, which means they're almost just guessing at the volume now because it's getting so huge. An update to this chart as well. We have, apologies. We have an update to how much the actual word "the" is being searched compared to, there we go. I got okay. Got my chat back up. Sorry, it was down for a second. I compared coronavirus to the word "the" to see if there was possibly, a chance that coronavirus was being searched more than the most common word in the English language. As of a couple days ago, or as of yesterday, it was not. As of today, it is. So if you do this on Google Trends, you'll see coronavirus has surpassed the most common word in the English language in Google search. Another crazy stat for how much volume, how much attention this is taking up, this crisis. Some of the most common emojis used on social, according to Sprinkler, when talking about coronavirus, a lot of crying, the red circle, which means alert or warning in a lot of countries, and the mask. And then I think the pointing down there is clearly people sharing articles, kind of pointing to stats and things like that as retweets. Engagement is down across all brands and all social networks. It's down the least on Twitter. So if you are lucky enough to have good engagement on Twitter, you aren't seeing as much as a drop on average. It's actually around 7% instead of 14%, but on Facebook and Instagram, 14% for most brands. Now, you are going to see different stats for your industry, for your social channels. So pay attention, I'd say daily, to what's going on with your engagement and learn from that as you go. because you'll see spikes when people are really curious about what's going on with your business. Obviously, restaurants are probably seeing huge spikes in engagement right now, universities, and you'll see lulls where people are just not ready to engage with a business because they're overwhelmed with the news, or they're focused on what they're doing every day for their business, or managing their family, right? Here's some of the trend lines that we've seen from Rival IQ. All of these trending down for the last week. This is very early. I imagine Rival IQ is going to update these numbers as we go over the next couple of weeks. But across every industry, we see a decline. Higher ed, there you'll see there's some spikes. I think a lot of industries are going to see spikes in engagement. It might even be up for some industries when it's very, very important that consumers are trying to get in touch with them. Colleges, universities, all kinds of schools, people are trying to figure out, recently, are they being canceled? They're trying to figure out how to engage in online classroom technology. They're trying to figure out, is graduation going to happen? How long can kids stay in the dorms? A lot of conversations today I'm seeing on social media are, is the actual, is the cafeteria open on campus? Because restaurants are closing, kids need to eat, but cafeterias are still open on a lot of campuses. So how does that work? So a lot of very specific conversations for some industries are going to see spikes in engagement. So I would be prepared of how your company is going to be impacted by this, and have crisis communications ready, have team members ready that can back up if you get huge spikes in engagement, huge spikes in customer service requests. Be prepared for those possibilities. Okay, so a quick list of what you can do to adapt your social media during this coronavirus, and then I'm going to get into platform news and some creative examples. So first, consider posting less. Also, number two, consider fewer performance-focused pieces of content. So that means, trying to convert people to a sale. That means direct-to-consumer ads. That means lead generation ads. We're seeing a decrease in those across the board. I'm not saying stop posting these things. I'm saying consider posting less, take a step back, take a deep breath, and really reconsider every piece of content you're posting right now and how it's going to look in the feed, how it is going to draw attention or be ignored. And also just tone. Does it look out of touch? Does it look a little myopic? Take a look at the messaging and really restructure it for where people's attention is right now. Number three, focus on brand. So focus on top of funnel, focus on anything you can do to kind of stay top of mind. If you're not selling stuff right now, if you're not converting stuff right now, if you're out of business, if you're having to close, still focus on brand content, because you want to maintain top of mind awareness so that when you are able to come back, when you are able to turn the lights back on, people have not forgotten you. You've still got some brand awareness built up that you can capitalize on and hopefully get back into the positive for the year. The last two here, I think hopefully for a lot of people, this is kind of a default mentality that we're all in right now, but focusing on empathy and focusing on service. So being kind, supporting your audience, supporting your community, figuring out how you can help them, how you can be of service to them, how you can be a trusted source of information. These are all great points of view to be coming from a brand account. I think it's, for some people, it's even hard to think about marketing right now in a time where we've got such a crisis. But I think it's very important for us to, make sure a lot of businesses are maintaining some type of revenue or maintaining some type of level balance for their employees, for everybody they employ, and don't be afraid to keep doing marketing, to try new things, to put ads out there on social media. Just have a change in your mindset and adapt to what's going on. As I mentioned before, we are doing social media manager office hours once a week. We did the first one yesterday. I got a great response. So if you're interested in that, it's a group video chat on Zoom. And I just take questions. People can chime in with their learnings, their challenges, their solutions as well. Just go to socialfresh.com/SMM, and that's a free chat that we're doing. You can also tweet me if you want to take part in that. So some big numbers from Facebook. We'll jump into some platform news here and examples of content that we've liked from the last quarter. Monthly active users across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, 2.8 billion. That number is going to cross 3 billion soon. That's 75% of the non-Chinese internet. That's a huge number for them. Huge. This is a new app that Facebook is testing called Whale. It's a meme app. It's for creating memes. It's for kind of a social network around memes. it's something that Facebook does as an R&D testing opportunity. They really are interested in testing this because they're seeing how popular memes are on Instagram, on Facebook. A lot of brands are really focusing on meme content and getting a ton of engagement from it. So this is Facebook trying to learn from that. And I would anticipate the tools that they're learning from inside this app will be rolled out to probably Instagram first and eventually Facebook as well. I think this is going to be a piece of both social networks eventually. This app is currently only available in Canada. Okay, so some fun content examples. The larger version of this deck that we do for our consulting clients is usually around 50 best practice pieces of content that we found over the last quarter. I've got a handful in this deck just to give you a sense of, some of the things I think are on trend or macro trends when it comes to content marketing and social, and why they're working and how you can potentially reproduce them. This is a slow motion type of boomerang video style from Sunkist that I think is really engaging. Pay attention to their use of slow motion and reversing the video like in a boomerang, and pay attention to just really bright static color that pops in the feed with good captions, good simple captions. Who knew oranges could be so visually fun? This is an example from FedEx. This another trend we're seeing, which is kind of meditative content, almost kind of a kaleidoscope style content. You see people doing content specifically geared towards helping people relax. And it really can, and it usually is looping, and it really can engage you for a longer time. So it's content that can keep people on your feed, on your post for a longer amount of time, and is really good for top of funnel, really good for branding. And this is kind of a conveyor of FedEx packages arriving safely to their destination. I think these work best when they are aligned with your brand, when your product is in the shot, when it aligns with kind of your brand values, which this does really well for FedEx. Okay, so another video effect here. This is kind of a montage style transition animation from Subway and Lay's. I've seen this from the New York Stock Exchange as well. A few brands have done this type of style of video. It's a quick cut of something that's similar in each shot. So either something in the foreground or something in the background that doesn't change, and everything else changes in the image. This example is actually a bunch of photos, so it's kind of lower lift. Any brand could do this, and the bag of Lay's is the one thing that kind of stays the same. No audio on this, but very engaging in the feed, a lot of different representation of different types of people. I think anybody can do a version of this. It's really, really engaging, would capture a lot of attention, stop people in the feed. Okay, so update from YouTube. We saw YouTube revenue numbers for the first time ever since Google acquired them 15 years ago. $15 billion in 2019. That's about 10% of all of Google's revenue. I think this is a huge number, but it's a little bit lower than what most people would have expected. When I think about this, I compare it to Facebook's revenue of $70 billion in 2019. And it really shows me that even though YouTube has such a massive audience and we're consuming so much video on YouTube, that they are not able to capitalize on that audience as well as Facebook. And it shows you how much of an advantage Facebook has on the internet compared to Google, compared to other social networks, that they're just really, their ad platform and the way they've integrated native ads in their platform is a best in class, and it gives them a great advantage over everyone else. So same number for Instagram. 2019 revenue was 20 billion. We're starting to see a little bit of numbers from Instagram total revenue for the first time. And this is a huge number. This is in Q4 of 2019, this was 30% of Facebook's total revenue across all their platforms. Not only that, if you look at this chart, we see the purple line is how much Instagram represents of Facebook's total revenue. The orange line is how much Instagram represents of growth. So that's new revenue coming in every month, every day. Instagram is representing about 70% of total new revenue coming into Facebook. So Instagram's driving all the new users and all the new revenue, all the new ad dollars for Facebook as a company right now. Some other stats we saw, some impact of the hiding like counts that Instagram is testing in 7 countries right now. This is also being tested in the US, but it's a very slow rollout in the US, so we don't have comprehensive numbers on that yet. But these numbers are from the other 6 countries that it's being tested in. And overall, there's a lot of variation, but it equals out to an average of a 10% drop in Instagram likes for brands in those countries. So this is actually not a huge hit for them. I think we expected likes to go down, expected engagement to go down, but it's a pretty manageable number there. So I think this is probably something they're going to roll out globally. I don't see anything stopping them from doing that. So content from Blinkist. Blinkist does these quote images quite often. They are, it's a common template for them. It's about half of their Instagram content. They're giving you shorter versions, summaries of books. So they're usually quotes from those books. And they do pretty well for them, but this style of photo is what we call a diorama effect. So it's a blurring technique of a photo that makes it look like a scale model, makes it look like you're farther away from the photo a little bit in the way. Some people think it looks like an aerial shot usually, and it usually is a higher angle that works best for this. But it's just something different. It's a photo effect that makes the photo look different than everything else you're seeing on Instagram. And it really slows people down. People look at these images a little more, and not a lot of people are posting this type of photography on Instagram. So I think effects like this, styles like this, are really useful to capture people's attention in the feed. This post did about 3 times better than all the other quote images that they had posted in the last few months. So it worked really well for them. Two examples here of people kind of innovating on Instagram. This is from Mark Pollard. He is a thought leader and author, book author. And he had a bunch of essays on different topics that he wanted to turn into Instagram content. So he used a carousel style that I thought was really interesting. So if you look at the different kind of illustrations he does here, it's all text, mainly a couple charts and one highlight color. He uses this yellow to highlight different titles, different words throughout. This one is specifically about burnout, but it's just a really kind of intentional way of displaying text on Instagram that's very engaging. Text, images, memes, quotes, tweets are doing really well on Instagram for engagement. But I think it's important, like Mark is doing here, is to find innovative ways to show that visually, and it can work really well. This, again, similar to the FedEx content, is going to keep people on your content much longer. It's going to be really good for branding. Okay, so some other text on this image, but this is very meme focused for Bud Light. Bud Light's Instagram content is very, very funny, really good personality that they share. I think in general, they do memes really well, kind of like Gushers is another great example of that. Chime Bank also does a lot of good memes. This is also another example of user interface as content. So the iPhone AirDrop is something that people get when you try to share photos with them. You can actually send photos over AirDrop to strangers if they're near you, and those settings on that stranger's phones allow for it. This one, very funny. Obviously, someone sends this out at my job at 4:59 every day. 5 o'clock guy, let's get out of here, with the meme of the guy carrying the Bud Light through the rain. I think any company can replicate kind of this AirDrop format or notification, pop-up format, iPhone notification, Android notification, anything that people are used to seeing on their phone that grabs their attention, I think is something that you can use and mock up in an image on Instagram or other social channels that really gathers attention. We're seeing this as a larger, Tintree is a fashion brand that does this on Instagram as well. It's definitely a larger content macro trend. Okay, so Pablo Rochat, I would definitely recommend following him on Instagram. He's a little edgy. Some of his content is a little out there, but he's an illustrator, he's an animator, just does a lot of really innovative content where he's creating 3D animations, he's drawing things, he's using photo manipulation, works with a lot of brands, does a lot of original content for brands on Instagram. This I thought was really an innovative use of photo tags, so tagging other brand accounts on Instagram in a photo, and he used it to just basically put a bunch of shoe brands in the shape of a shoe. Very simple, but very clever, and anybody could do this. I mean, I think it's a very specific example here because these are always black, but basically drawing with tags on Instagram photo, I think is a really creative use case here that somebody could probably do their own version of pretty easily. Very interactive. Okay, some stats out of Twitter. Twitter and Snapchat had huge numbers in 2019 for their platforms, for their growth. Biggest growth year for Twitter in 5+ years. First time they've had multiple quarters of increasing, accelerating growth. Their daily active users, monetizable users, went up 11, 14, 17, and 21% for all quarters of 2019. I could back these numbers up 4 or 5 years and you would not see this trajectory for Twitter. So I think Twitter's focused right now on really improving the quality of discussion, the quality of back and forth conversations, threaded conversations on the platform, getting rid of bad actors, getting rid of spammers, bots. That's been their focus for 2 years now, and it's really starting to pay off. If you use Twitter on a regular basis, I think you'll agree that it's kind of improving as a truly social, the word social part of a social network. Here's what those numbers look like as hard metrics, getting up over 150 million monetizable daily active users for Twitter. And if we look at which social networks grew by percentage the most in 2019, Twitter led the way both in the US and globally at 15%, and I believe globally they were around 21%. Facebook is growing around 2% in the US, similar numbers globally, but a little larger, I think up to 5% in some regions. Instagram, they don't give us numbers on, but it's basically somewhere in between Facebook and Snapchat based on our best guesses right now. But Snapchat also saw big numbers, and I'll jump into those shortly. New Jersey, if you haven't seen, now has a personified Twitter account. This is them, quote, retweeting someone who asked who let New Jersey have a Twitter. New Jersey responded, your mom. So if you're a brand looking at these great examples from Wendy's and Steakum, and even Twitter and Netflix and other Twitter accounts that are really personified, have a lot of attitude, have personality, have a lot of fun, get in fights with other brands. It's a hard thing to pull off. You really have to hire someone that can do it full time and do it well. But when you do it, New Jersey's Twitter account, and this is their official Twitter account, is a great example of what it can do for your engagement. They went from what you would normally expect of just kind of a ho-hum government Twitter account, tweeting out links to news and things like that, to having a lot of fun, making fun of New Jersey, celebrating the quirky things about New Jersey, tagging celebrities that are from New Jersey. And I don't know the real percentage, but it's thousands of percent more higher engagement for them. I mean, this was one of their best examples, but even their least engaging content right now is about 10 times more engaging than what they were doing before. So if you do make this investment and you can get the right people behind it, it's really worth the magnification you'll get on this platform specifically. All right, so this is content from University of Pittsburgh basketball. I like looking at college sports for video effects. They're a great example of how you can better stylize video. And one of the things we're seeing across all social networks is the influence of TikTok, the influence of editing styles on TikTok, and specifically really looking at transitions and fast-paced editing and just a lot of effects and filters and things like that start on TikTok and really are adopted on YouTube or adopted on Instagram or adopted on Twitter, etc. So this video specifically, they have a lot of these spin style transitions that are simply done by moving the camera really fast at the end or beginning of a transition. So I wanted to show that as an example of how TikTok content is going to other social networks in a big way. So you'll see each time they transition, camera spins up, down, left, or right. Really good energy, really engaging style of video editing that you'll see a lot more of. All right, so we have a native ad here on Reddit. Reddit has really upped their ad platform over the last 12 to 18 months. And I think the way I know it's working really well is there's a lot of advertisers that are making ads custom to Reddit. So this is an ad from Robinhood, who is a trading platform. And it's very playful, it's very silly. It's an illustration of a bunch of bears on top of each other, actually knocking away the words in this caption. Be bearish on fees, be bearish on minimums. Just a really simple looping animation, but an ad that they only put on Reddit, and really kind of the playfulness, I think it probably works best on Reddit. Okay, so those numbers that I mentioned from Snapchat, we have 32 million new users, daily active users on Snapchat in 2019. Those are big numbers for them. Um, I'll go back to that number for a second. We saw growth from Snapchat this year driven mostly by two things. Number one, their Android app is finally usable. They were not investing in their Android app, which is the largest base of users on a phone platform. So they fixed that and they've seen an uptick since then. But also they continue to invest in these filters. They continue to invest in these augmented reality effects that are being driven off the platform as well as on. So things like the seeing what you look like as a baby, how you look old, switching faces with other people. These filters go viral on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and people really have high engagement with sharing those with their friends. Like, this is what I look like with this filter. You should try it so I can see what you're going to look like. Those are very natural sharing moments. And Snapchat themselves has admitted that this has driven the majority of their growth, their new user growth this year. So you'll see them continue to double down on those filters because it is driving a lot of their user growth. All right. So additionally, the augmented reality. So I think it's really important to understand that Snapchat is basically raising a generation of internet users, consumers that expect augmented reality as a part of their communications with their friends, as their communications with brands, as anything they do online. So this stat from their last earnings in Q4, 75% of Snapchat users engage with AR daily. It's just a part of Snapchat as a platform, right? It's becoming a bigger part of TikTok. It's becoming a bigger part of Instagram. We saw some filters go viral on Instagram this year around New Year's that have really continued to trend. So I think, it's not urgent that your brand has, an augmented reality strategy, but you need to start thinking about it soon, because the brands that are kind of using this as a part of their communication, especially if you're going after a younger audience, you're going to be more relatable. You're going to seem like you know what you're doing a little more if you're able to do it in a relevant way for your brand. So just think about how much younger users online right now are interacting with AR as part of their daily communications, and think about how that impacts what you're doing. Okay, so this is a graphic we put together based on what Evan Spiegel of Snapchat said in an interview in Munich last quarter. So he was asked about TikTok and how he would classify TikTok compared to other social networks. And he described this pyramid, this kind of abstract concept in his head. So we wanted to actually put it into a visual. And he describes, the way to think about social networks is to think about Snapchat and maybe other messaging apps as the bottom communication layer of social media technology. And what he means by that is you can do high volume, so you can send a lot of messages through those platforms without really worrying about the production quality or how well you're crafting those messages. Some of them disappear pretty quick. And it just allows you to kind of be more human, and you're mostly communicating with close contacts, friends, people you know. It's very similar to texting, and it really is a higher volume, lower quality, lower production, right? You get up into what he describes as a status part of the pyramid, and Instagram is the best example of that. It's where you're posting moments that are special. So like I, visited the beach. I had a birthday party. I got to meet up with my 5 favorite friends. And we see influencers and all kinds of Instagram users really making that a very status play, where they're posting their polished, really well-crafted content on Instagram, maybe on Facebook to an extent as well. And then the third level of the pyramid is talent. He puts TikTok in this category, where it's much higher entertainment value and sometimes higher production, and takes a lot more work. So you think about TikTok content that you see, a lot of times it's people that have a talent, that have a musical skill, that have a dance skill, that takes practice, that takes multiple shoots. These clips take a lot of editing. Similar to YouTube, content on YouTube is also higher production, higher resource cost, and typically are posting less, right? The thing I'll mention about TikTok though is I think it defies this pyramid a little bit, because there's a lot of people posting multiple TikToks a day. Even though they are higher production, there is a little bit of low production opportunity on TikTok that doesn't exist maybe on YouTube or on Instagram, where you can actually churn out lower production content on TikTok as long as it has talent, as long as it has people dancing, as long as it is funny, as long as it is entertaining in some way. And then Evan actually was asked at this same event, will TikTok overtake Instagram in his opinion? He said he thinks it's certainly possible, mainly because TikTok's content is more entertaining and more fun. And I think we're seeing that growth really come to play. I think we're potentially, we don't have updated numbers from Instagram for over a year, but I think over the next 2 years, you're really going to see TikTok start to compete for time spent, start to compete for those younger users in a massive way. Evan basically already knows that TikTok has beaten Snapchat, right? But how long until it overtakes Instagram, we don't really know, but it does seem like that's the trend line, which is a really interesting story to keep watching. Okay, so a few download stats for TikTok. They've been off the charts, obviously, for a while. What we did see is a little bit of a slowdown Q2, basically for the second half of last year. And what that was caused by is TikTok started spending less money on Facebook ads. So TikTok has basically bought their way to the top of the social media popularity contest, right? They really spend a lot of money on YouTube ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, Snapchat, so much so that they were a top 10 advertiser on Facebook for over a year and a half. They started to drop out of that top 10 in Q3 last year. So their growth has started to decline a little bit, but it's still going up. And so what that tells us is that they've bought way to the top, but they're getting organic growth now and they're growing on their own to where they don't have to spend as much money on those ads. I think you'll still see them continue to drive growth, but they made a shorter term investment to really get a ton of users because they have a lot of money and it's worked out really well for them. All right, so these are a few tips from TikTok themselves about how to make more engaging content on TikTok. I'll point out these last two very specifically. And I know we're wrapping up here. I'm almost done, a couple more slides. But number one, use the sounds and music on TikTok as your background music, as opposed to recording your own original voice or original music or something like that. Focus on audio clips that are already in the system and building on those trends and the ones that are trending. It really opens you up to more discovery. Second one here is end with some type of surprise. And this is a lesson that people learn from Vine, very true to the Vine platform, which is surprise people, have an ending that really kind of is something they don't expect. This drives sharing. So this will drive people to download that video and share it to Instagram and share it to Twitter. Some type of flipping the script in your video really helps. And a lot of the trends on TikTok, you'll notice, revolve around that concept in one way or another. Okay, so one TikTok example we saw at the Super Bowl from Sabra Hummus that was really funny and includes, old people will know one person on this and younger people will know the other celebrity on this video. The crossover of the people that know both of them is very low, but we have one of the most popular TikTok influencers, as well as Boomer Esiason, an old NFL quarterback, doing this really fun duet style video from Sabra for the Super Bowl. And that's Charlie D'Amelio is the TikTok influencer. So really fun play on the OK Boomer copy there. Okay, so if you have any questions, load them into the Facebook, hit me up on Twitter. You can also just email me if you need help on anything that has to do with social media, if you're interested in these types of presentations on a regular basis, jason@socialfresh.com. And I'd like to turn it back over to Nikki. Nikki, thanks for having me on once again.